My daughter didn't invite me to my grandson's graduation. She didn't know I was the guest speaker. The look on her face when I walked onto that stage was worth every second of the hurt I'd endured for years. Sometimes life gives you the perfect opportunity to teach someone a lesson they'll never forget. Let me take you back to where this all began. I'm Sarah, a 68-year-old retired English professor who dedicated my entire life to education and to my family. I raised my daughter Jennifer as a single mother after her father abandoned us when she was just 3 years old. Everything I did, every sacrifice I made, was to give her a better life than I had. And for the most part, I thought I'd succeeded, until money and status became more important to her than family. When I was growing up, we didn't have much. My parents were hardworking people. Dad was a mechanic at the local factory. Mom cleaned houses for the wealthy families across town. They instilled in me a love of learning and the belief that education was the ticket to a better life. I was the first in my family to go to college, working nights at a diner to pay my way through. Those years taught me the value of perseverance, of dignity in the face of struggle. I met David, Jennifer's father, during my senior year. He was charming, ambitious, with dreams of becoming a successful entrepreneur. We married young, full of hope for the future. I put my own dreams of graduate school on hold to support his business ventures. When Jennifer was born, I thought our little family was complete. But 3 years later, David announced he'd met someone else, someone who understood his vision better than I did. He left us with nothing but a pile of debt from his failed startups and a half-empty apartment. Suddenly, I was a single mother with a toddler, working as a teaching assistant while trying to finish my master's degree. Those early years were a blur of exhaustion, grading papers while Jennifer slept, stretching every dollar until it screamed, choosing between paying the electric bill or buying new shoes for my growing daughter. But we made it. I earned my PhD while teaching full-time and raising Jennifer. Every achievement, every small step forward, was for her. It started small. Once Jennifer married Richard, a successful investment banker from a wealthy family, the visits became less frequent. Phone calls shortened. Eventually, I was lucky to get a text message response within a week. But I never imagined she would deliberately exclude me from my own grandson's high school graduation, especially knowing how much education means to me. Education wasn't just my career. It was my salvation, my passion, the thing that had lifted us from poverty to stability. And now I was being told I wasn't good enough to witness my own grandson reach this milestone. I worked 2 jobs for 20 years to put Jennifer through the best schools. When she decided on Westlake University, a $45,000 per year private college, I sold my mother's antique jewelry collection and took out a second mortgage on my modest home to make it happen. I wanted her to have every opportunity one never had. During those college years, I lived on ramen noodles and worked 60-hour weeks, but I never complained. Her success was my success. Jennifer graduated with honors, and I couldn't have been prouder. She met Richard during her senior year, and while he seemed nice enough, there was always something calculating in the way he looked at me, like I was somehow beneath him. After they married, they moved into a luxury home in Oakwood Estates, the kind of neighborhood where people have heated driveways and indoor pools. My grandson Michael was born a year later, and he became the light of my life. I cherished every moment with him, teaching him to read before kindergarten, helping with science projects, and attending every school play and baseball game. I put $200 from my teacher's pension into his college fund every month since the day he was born. I was in the delivery room when Michael came into the world. Jennifer had been in labor for 18 hours, exhausted and frightened. Richard had stepped out to make some calls that kept him away for most of the delivery. I held Jennifer's hand through each contraction, wiped her forehead, encouraged her when she said she couldn't do it anymore. When Michael finally arrived, red-faced and screaming with healthy lungs, the nurse placed him in my arms while the doctor attended to Jennifer. "Say hello to your grandson," the nurse said. That moment, his tiny weight in my arms, his unfocused eyes briefly meeting mine, it cemented a connection that I knew would last a lifetime. I whispered to him, "I'm your grandma, and I will always be here for you, no matter what." It was a promise I intended to keep, regardless of what came between us. In those early years, I was at their house constantly. Jennifer struggled with postpartum depression, and Richard's idea of helping was hiring a night nurse rather than adjusting his work schedule. I would come over after my morning classes, cook meals that I portioned and froze, do laundry, and take care of Michael while Jennifer rested. When he was colicky, I was the one who discovered that gentle bouncing while humming Beethoven's Ninth would settle him. I kept a journal of his first words, first steps, first everything. As he grew older, our bond only deepened. When he was 5, Jennifer and Richard decided to take a 2-week vacation to Europe, adults only. Mom, you don't mind watching Michael, right? It would cost a fortune to cancel now. I rearranged my entire teaching schedule, calling in favors from colleagues to cover my classes so I could stay at their house with Michael. We had our own little adventures, building a backyard fort, visiting the Natural History Museum, making homemade ice cream. When Jennifer and Richard returned, tanned and refreshed, Michael cried when I had to leave. "Why can't Grandma stay forever?" he asked. Jennifer laughed it off, but I saw the flash of irritation in her eyes. As Michael grew older, Jennifer began to forget to tell me about school events. When I'd show up anyway after hearing about them from other parents, she'd introduce me to her country club friends as my mother, never by name, like I was some kind of embarrassing footnote in her perfect life. Richard would make subtle comments about my modest clothes or my 10-year-old sedan. Mom still refuses to upgrade her lifestyle. Jennifer would laugh to her friends, as if my financial prudence was some character flaw. What she conveniently forgot to mention was that I had paid $30,000 toward their wedding, or that I had given them $15,000 for the down payment on their first apartment. I remember one particular parents' night at Michael's elementary school. I had arrived early, eager to see his science project on display. Jennifer and Richard arrived 20 minutes late, Jennifer dressed in a designer outfit that probably cost more than my monthly pension. When she spotted me talking to Michael's teacher, she hurried over. "Mom, I didn't know you were coming," she said, her smile tight. "Michael invited me last week when I was helping him finish his project," I explained. "Well, we're here now, so you don't have to stay," she said, lowering her voice. "I'm sure you're tired and want to get home." I wasn't tired. I wanted to see all the projects, to watch Michael's face light up when he showed us his work. But I recognized the dismissal for what it was. As I was leaving, Michael ran after me. "Grandma, you didn't see my volcano. It actually erupts." The disappointment in his voice broke my heart. "Your mom and dad are here now, sweetheart," I told him gently. "You can tell me all about it tomorrow." As I walked to my car, I overheard Richard talking to another parent. "Jennifer's mother," he was saying, "still insists on being involved in everything. Retirement clearly doesn't keep her busy enough." The casual cruelty of it stung, but I had grown accustomed to swallowing such hurts for Michael's sake. Despite this growing distance, Michael and I maintained a close relationship. He would often call me directly to talk about books or ask for help with his English assignments. When he won the state debate championship in his junior year, he called me first, before his own parents, because he knew I would understand what it meant to him. The real breaking point came 3 months before Michael's graduation. I had stopped by their house unannounced, something Jennifer had repeatedly told me not to do, because I had found a first edition copy of Michael's favorite author's book that I wanted to give him as an early graduation gift. As I approached the front door, I could hear Jennifer and Richard entertaining guests in their backyard. I walked around the side of the house, intending to just catch Michael's attention, when I overheard a conversation that stopped me cold. "So will your mother be at Michael's graduation?" asked a woman's voice I recognized as Jennifer's friend Claudia. Jennifer's laugh was brittle. "God, no. Can you imagine? She'd show up in one of her thrift store blazers and probably try to correct the principal's grammar." "But isn't she a retired professor? Wouldn't she want to see her grandson graduate?" another voice asked. "Look," Jennifer said, lowering her voice, but still perfectly audible, "my mother had her chance to be part of this life. She chose to remain stuck in her middle-class mindset. Michael is graduating from Westlake Prep. The governor will be there. The Andersons and the Millers will be at our table. I can't have her embarrassing us with her community college stories and sensible shoes. Richard chimed in, "Besides, we only have 8 tickets for the reserved seating section." Jennifer's parents barely contributed to Michael's education. My parents put in $50,000 for his college fund. They deserve those seats. The silence that followed made it clear everyone knew this was wrong, but no one was willing to say it. "It's for the best," Jennifer continued. "She'll be fine. We'll send her some pictures and maybe have her over for dinner sometime next month." I stood there, the beautifully wrapped book in my hands, feeling like someone had punched me in the stomach. Not only was I being excluded from one of the most important days in my grandson's life, but my own daughter was ashamed of me, of the very sacrifices I had made that allowed her to become who she was. "But what about Michael?" someone asked, a voice I didn't recognize. "Won't he want his grandmother there?" "Michael understands how these things work," Richard answered smoothly. "He knows appearances matter in our circle. Besides, he'll be focused on his friends and the celebration. He probably won't even notice." But I knew Michael would notice. Unlike his parents, he valued substance over appearance. Just last month, he had chosen to attend a lecture with me at the university rather than go to a party at the country club. "Those parties are all the same, Grandma," he had said. "Everyone trying to impress each other with things that don't matter. I'd rather hear ideas that make me think." I left without anyone seeing me, the gift still in my hands. That night, I cried for hours. Not just for being excluded, but for the realization that my daughter had become someone I didn't recognize, someone who valued appearance over substance, status over family. The betrayal cut deep, a wound that reached back through decades of sacrifice and love. I thought of all the nights I had sat at Jennifer's bedside when she was sick as a child, singing softly and cooling her fevered forehead with damp cloths. I remembered teaching her to ride a bike in the empty school parking lot on Sundays, running alongside until she found her balance. I recalled working through the night to sew her costume for the school play when the store-bought one fell apart the day before. I had been there for every moment, large and small. And now I was an embarrassment, a relic to be hidden away, mentioned only when necessary, and certainly not included in the glossy narrative she had constructed for herself. For several days, I couldn't bring myself to call or text her. I moved through my routines mechanically, watering my plants, grading the occasional paper for the continuing education class I taught at the senior center, preparing simple meals I barely tasted. The book remained wrapped on my dining room table, a tangible reminder of what had been lost. On the third day, I received a text from Michael. "Grandma, did you get the graduation announcement? Mom said she sent it weeks ago." The lie was another twist of the knife. There had been no announcement, no invitation, no acknowledgement whatsoever of this milestone. Jennifer had deliberately kept me in the dark, then lied to her son about it. I didn't have the heart to tell him the truth. "Yes, sweetheart. So proud of you," I replied, knowing then that Jennifer had lied to him too. I wouldn't drag Michael into this ugliness. He deserved to enjoy his achievement without family drama overshadowing it. That evening, I forced myself to be practical. Hurt feelings wouldn't solve anything. I needed to decide how to handle this situation with dignity, both for myself and for Michael's sake. I made a cup of tea and sat on my porch swing, the same swing where I used to rock Jennifer to sleep on summer evenings when the apartment was too hot for comfortable rest. As twilight settled around me, I found clarity emerging from the pain. I would not confront Jennifer, not yet. I would not force an invitation where I wasn't wanted. But neither would I simply accept being erased from this moment. There had to be a middle path, one that preserved my dignity while ensuring I could share in Michael's achievement in some way. Over the next few weeks, I noticed Michael becoming increasingly anxious during our phone calls. Finally, he confessed, "Mom says there aren't enough tickets for you to come to graduation." I told her it wasn't fair, but she said you understood. "I'm so sorry, Grandma." The pain in his voice broke my heart all over again. He was caught in the middle, torn between loyalty to his parents and his genuine love for me. I wouldn't add to his burden by revealing the truth of what I had overheard. "Don't worry about me," I assured him. "Your graduation is about celebrating you, not about family drama." "But it's wrong," he insisted. "You're the one who helped me with all my college essays. You're the one who taught me to love learning. You should be there." "I'll be celebrating you, Michael, whether I'm physically present or not," I told him. and we'll have our own celebration afterward. I promise. What neither Michael nor Jennifer knew was that 6 months earlier, the principal of Westlake Prep, Dr. Reynolds, had called me. We had worked together at the university before I retired, and he had tremendous respect for my work in education. Sarah, he had said, we're looking for our commencement speaker this year, and I immediately thought of you. Your paper on the future of humanistic education in a technological age has become required reading for educators nationwide. Would you consider giving our graduation address? I had accepted immediately, honored by the recognition of my life's work. The invitation had come with a small honorarium, $2,000 that I had already earmarked for a gift for Michael. Back then, I had imagined Jennifer's pride when the announcement was made. Now, I recognized it for what it truly was, an opportunity to reclaim my dignity and to show my daughter that true worth isn't measured by designer labels or country club memberships. And now, knowing what I knew about Jennifer's deliberate exclusion, I decided not to mention this small detail to anyone in the family. Sometimes, education came in unexpected forms. This would be a lesson none of them would soon forget. It's for the best, Jennifer continued. She'll be fine. We'll send her some pictures and maybe have her over for dinner sometime next month. I stood there, the beautifully wrapped book in my hands, feeling like someone had punched me in the stomach. Not only was I being excluded from one of the most important days in my grandson's life, but my own daughter was ashamed of me, of the very sacrifices I had made that allowed her to become who she was. I left without anyone seeing me, the gift still in my hands. That night, I cried for hours. Not just for being excluded, but for the realization that my daughter had become someone I didn't recognize, someone who valued appearance over substance, status over family. The next day, I received a text from Michael. Grandma, did you get the graduation announcement? Mom said she sent it weeks ago. I didn't have the heart to tell him the truth. Yes, sweetheart. So proud of you, I replied, knowing then that Jennifer had lied to him too. Over the next few weeks, I noticed Michael becoming increasingly anxious during our phone calls. Finally, he confessed, Mom says there aren't enough tickets for you to come to graduation. I told her it wasn't fair, but she said you understood. I'm so sorry, Grandma. Don't worry about me, I assured him. Your graduation is about celebrating you, not about family drama. What neither Michael nor Jennifer knew was that 6 months earlier, the principal of Westlake Prep, Dr. Reynolds, had called me. We had worked together at the university before I retired, and he had tremendous respect for my work in education. Sarah, he had said, we're looking for our commencement speaker this year, and I immediately thought of you. Your paper on the future of humanistic education in a technological age has become required reading for educators nationwide. Would you consider giving our graduation address? I had accepted immediately, honored by the recognition of my life's work. And now, knowing what I knew about Jennifer's deliberate exclusion, I decided not to mention this small detail to anyone in the family. 2 weeks before graduation, Jennifer called me, the first time she had actually called rather than texted in months. Mom, she said, her voice falsely bright, about Michael's graduation. The thing is, they're really limiting tickets this year, and with Richard's parents coming, and his sister and her husband, plus a couple of Michael's friends who don't have family coming, there just isn't room. I see, I said quietly. You understand, right? It's nothing personal. It's just logistics. Of course, I replied. Logistics. We'll have a nice dinner afterwards, just family, she continued, not hearing the pain in my voice. Or maybe next weekend. Richard has some work thing the night of graduation. I took a deep breath. Jennifer, I have a question for you. When did money become more important than family? When did appearances start to matter more than the people who sacrificed everything for you? There was a long pause on the line. Mom, that's not fair. This isn't about money. It's about space. Space, I repeated. There's no space for the woman who worked 60-hour weeks for 20 years to put you through college. No space for the grandmother who never missed a single one of Michael's baseball games. No space for me at your table because Richard's parents, who see Michael twice a year, contributed more money. Mom, you're being dramatic. No, Jennifer. For once, I'm being honest. You've been pushing me away for years because you're embarrassed by me. Because I don't fit into your country club life. Because my hands are worn from decades of hard work rather than manicured for show. That's ridiculous, she sputtered. If you're going to be like this, maybe it's better you don't come at all. Don't worry, I said calmly. I won't embarrass you by sitting at your table. But I want you to remember something. Everything you have, your education, your opportunities, the very foundation that allowed you to meet Richard and enter his world, came from my sacrifice. And someday, when appearances fade and fair-weather friends move on, you'll realize what truly matters. I hung up before she could respond. For the first time in decades, I had stood up for myself. The pain was still there, but now there was something else too, a quiet determination to show my daughter that dignity can't be bought and true worth isn't measured by a price tag. Over the next 2 weeks, I focused on preparing my commencement address. Dr. Reynolds had asked me to speak about perseverance and character, topics I now felt uniquely qualified to address. I worked carefully on every word, making sure my speech would inspire the graduates while subtly addressing the values that seemed to be slipping away in our status-obsessed society. I also called Michael and told him I understood about the ticket situation, but that I would be watching the live stream of the ceremony and would celebrate with him another time. He sounded disappointed but relieved that I wasn't making a scene. Little did he know. The day before graduation, I received a text from Jennifer. "Mom, we might have an extra ticket after all if you still want to come. One of Richard's colleagues can't make it." The audacity of being offered a leftover ticket, as if I should be grateful for the scraps from their table, only strengthened my resolve. I politely declined, saying I had already made other plans. Jennifer didn't bother to ask what those plans might be. On graduation day, I arrived at Westlake Prep 2 hours early, as requested for the platform party. I wore my academic regalia, the doctoral robe and hood that represented years of scholarly achievement. Dr. Reynolds greeted me warmly and introduced me to the other dignitaries, including the governor and several prominent alumni. From the preparation room, I could see through a window as families began to arrive. I spotted Jennifer and Richard, dressed impeccably as always, being seated in the front section with Richard's parents. Jennifer was laughing, showing off her designer dress to another mother, completely unaware of what was about to happen. As the ceremony began, I waited backstage. The procession, the national anthem, the welcome address, all proceeded according to plan. And then Dr. Reynolds approached the podium. For our commencement address, it is my great honor to introduce someone whose contribution to education spans 4 decades. A published author, a mentor to countless educators, and one of the most respected voices in pedagogical theory. Please welcome to the stage Dr. Sarah Mitchell. As I walked onto the stage, a hush fell over the audience. I locked eyes with Jennifer, whose mouth had fallen open in shock. Richard was frantically whispering to her. Even from a distance, I could see the color drain from her face as she realized what was happening. I approached the podium with my head held high. Thank you, Dr. Reynolds, for that kind introduction. Distinguished guests, faculty, parents, and most importantly, graduates of the class of 2025. Today marks not just the end of your high school journey, but the beginning of the rest of your lives, lives that will be defined not by what you accumulate, but by what you contribute. My eyes found Michael in his cap and gown among the graduates. Unlike his mother, his shock quickly transformed into a wide, appreciative smile. He knew exactly what was happening, and the slight nod he gave me spoke volumes about whose side he was on. Throughout my 15-minute address, I spoke about integrity, gratitude, and the true meaning of success. I never once directly referenced my personal situation, but the message was clear to those who needed to hear it. I spoke about how education is not merely a means to financial success, but a path to becoming a person of substance and character. In my 40 years as an educator, I concluded, I've learned that the most important lesson isn't found in any textbook. It's the understanding that our worth as human beings isn't measured by our bank accounts or social status, but by how we treat others, especially those who sacrifice to give us opportunities. Remember that as you go forward, and you will never truly fail. The applause was thunderous. As I returned to my seat on the platform, I caught another glimpse of Jennifer. She sat rigid in her chair, her expression a mixture of embarrassment and something else, perhaps the first glimmer of recognition of what she had done. After the ceremony, as I was congratulating graduates and receiving compliments on my address, Michael broke away from his friends and ran to embrace me. "Grandma, that was amazing!" "Why didn't you tell me?" he exclaimed. "Sometimes the best lessons come as surprises," I said, hugging him tightly. Over his shoulder, I could see Jennifer and Richard approaching slowly, their faces unreadable. For a moment, I wondered if this public lesson had been too harsh, if I had burned a bridge that could never be rebuilt. Jennifer reached us first, her composure clearly forced. "Mother," she said stiffly, "congratulations on your speech." "It was unexpected." "Thank you, Jennifer," I replied calmly. "It was an honor to be asked." Richard's parents approached then, looking at me with new interest. "Dr. Mitchell," Richard's father said, "your address was exceptional." "Richard mentioned you were a teacher, but he never said you were such a distinguished academic." "Just a community college professor," I said with a pointed look at Jennifer, who had the grace to look ashamed. As more parents and faculty came to congratulate me, I could see Jennifer watching, witnessing the respect I commanded in this world she thought I couldn't belong to. Dr. Reynolds joined us, putting an arm around my shoulders. "Sarah has been a mentor to me for 15 years, he told the group. "Half the educational framework we use at Westlake was influenced by her research. We're incredibly fortunate she agreed to speak today." The look on Jennifer's face was worth every moment of hurt I had endured. It wasn't about humiliating her, it was about showing her that the mother she had been ashamed of had earned respect through substance, not appearance. Later that evening, as the crowds thinned, Jennifer approached me alone. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide the redness around her eyes. "Mom," she said quietly, "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I replied. "Yes, I do," she insisted. "I've been horrible, unforgivable." I convinced myself I was protecting our image, our status, but really I was just ashamed of where I came from. Of you. And I was wrong. So terribly wrong. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw beneath the designer clothes and perfect hair to the little girl who used to sit on my lap while I graded papers late into the night. "We all make mistakes, Jennifer," I said. "The question is whether we learn from them." "Can you ever forgive me?" she asked, tears spilling onto her cheeks. "I already have," I told her. "But forgiveness doesn't mean we don't need to have some serious conversations about respect and family." She nodded, looking simultaneously relieved and apprehensive. "Michael wants us all to have dinner together. Would that be okay?" "I'd like that," I said. "And Jennifer? Leave the country club friends behind. Tonight should be just family." As we walked toward the parking lot together, several of my former colleagues called out goodbyes, treating me with the deference earned through decades of contribution to our field. I could feel Jennifer watching, reassessing everything she thought she knew about status and worth. Michael bounded up to join us, his graduation cap askew, his face alight with the joy of the day and the relief of seeing a potential reconciliation between his mother and grandmother. "Best graduation ever," he announced, putting his arms around both of us. Grandma stole the show. For the first time in years, Jennifer and I laughed together, a genuine moment of connection that held the promise of healing. I had taught many lessons in my career as an educator, but perhaps none as important as the one delivered today. True worth comes not from what you have, but from who you are. And sometimes, the most powerful teaching moments come when you least expect them, like when a deliberately uninvited mother takes the stage as the surprise graduation speaker.